The city of Jing is presented. A girl walks down the street looking at her cell phone as someone approaches and gives her shoulder a touch. The man who draws his attention says that she is marked and will face a bloodbath. Confused, she turns around and the man keeps saying that she should shed blood to avoid future disasters. Without understanding, she asks what he... She opens her bag and comments that she remembers having an aunt's towel and probably didn't forget her. Annoyed by the enigmatic message, she says she is not a virgin and has no interest in dating the man. Meanwhile, but it was called a pervert. He wonders if all the women in Jiaoyong look like this.
Still walking, man reflects that this attitude is normal.
After all, mortals are everywhere, and it is natural that they do not believe it. The story changes to explain the young man's life, revealing that he was born in the family. Despite suffering bullying from his colleagues, his family was very happy. However, everything changed 5 years ago when his father tried to save a girl and ended up offending a man from the capital. A few days later, during a banquet in Villa du Lago Cloud, his whole family was exterminated, leaving it as the only survivor. Also, none of the family friends, uncles, or acquaintances have done something about it. The boy, furious, declares that he will kill someone. He is seen running toward another man, making threats. A sword is thrown at him, but shatters. With a cruel smile, the other man mocks him, saying that he doesn't even know what the young family is and could destroy her with his own hands. Continuing his story, the young man says that if it wasn't for his mother to push him to Lake Chien, he would not have survived. However, he was saved by a master and taken to Kulin. Now with a mission given by his master, Chen is back in town, determined to hit all blood bills. Suddenly something happens and many people fall to the floor, saying they can't move and feel weak. The boy realizes that, accidentally, affected innocence and interrupts the release of his power. The around the crowd begins to wonder what has just happened, feeling a strange aura. Chen thinks it is time to finish the task given by his master, because he has no hurry to take revenge. The OMAD group is introduced, being one of CH and one of Jiangqing's leading companies. Confused, the protagonist wonders if this is really the place where Chia Haku of the Homemade Group is located. The young man explains that 3 days ago an elder used a tank and found that the girl can die in 100 days. Now it is up to him to prevent this tragedy. Someone tries to enter the building to investigate, but trying to convince them. Shin says he needs to talk to Chia Haku. The guards contact the young woman and ask if she has a marked commitment. Realizing that he cannot talk to her, the young man asks how he could make an appointment, since what he has to say is very important. He suggests waiting on the couch, but the guards refuse, saying that not everyone can simply meet the woman, ordering him to leave. Annoyed, Shin questions the meaning of their words. Quickly, he releases a power that makes both guards fall to his knees. The duo wonders what has just happened, feeling like they were on the brink of death. Triumphant, the protagonist warns them to be careful with the words and not acting like idiots, while the others around him, confused, he sits. Take the cap and asks to call the manager. Once again, a purple energy begins to emanate from the protagonist, leaving people a little scared. Everyone wonders what is happening. Armed police approach and call the boy. The head of the security department advances and asks if Chin has thought of the consequences of the chaos it caused. Still annoyed, he explains again that he is just looking for Shia and asks them not to disturb him. Startled, the head of security wonders what's wrong with the boy, feeling that he could easily kill everyone there. Wanting to solve the situation, the man says the woman is not in place and asks him to leave her contact. Confused, the boy realizes that there is nothing he can do, since the woman is not present. Even so, he decides to wait for her return. Keeping your job, the security guard knows that it cannot allow such a dangerous person to remain there. He orders the police to advance, but suddenly someone appears screaming and commanding them to wait. Was a person with purple hair, with an imposing presence. A woman enters the scene and declares that she will resolve the situation. The other employees stay, curious about who she is. And then, she is presented as Soon, the company's director. It is mentioned that the only person who can rival his appearance is Miss Chia Haku. The security boss tries to warn her about the danger, but soon asks to be alone with the protagonist. She introduces herself and asks how the young man can help. Chen is surprised to see her and hear her name.
Lost in thoughts, he explains that in the last 5 years Seoi has been one of the people he could never forget.
He says they were partner colleagues in high school and had a great relationship, but lost contact. After that, a tragedy hit his family. Everyone began to despise and avoid the years, and the influential families announced that they had no more bonds with them. The Thieves Group, founded by Shan's father, was taken by others and ended up falling under the domain of a man in the capital. Even so, Sun faced all the rumors and went to the morgue to complain the bodies of Shan's parents and lifting a family for the family. Still shaken by the reunion, Chin admits that he never expected to find Sun in that place. His thoughts are interrupted when Sam says he is approaching too much. He apologizes, and she asks if there is anything that can help him. Still embarrassed, Chin apologizes again and says that Sun remembers a lot of an old friend, which distracts him. She comments that the conversation is looking old, walks away, and tells him to stay there waiting for the person he wants to find. Without causing upset, Chan immersed again in his thoughts, reflecting on how much Sun has changed over the years. Now she has a much stronger presence. He decides to put this question aside and leaves the place. In the meantime, someone unlock a car with the key. It's Sun preparing to leave. Inside the car, she realizes something strange. Look at the rearview mirror and see Shin sitting on the back seat, which makes her scream. He greets her by calling her Linda. Confused, Soon asks when he got into the car and what he wants. Shane replies that she would like a ride. Without understanding, since he should be waiting for someone, she decides to help him anyway. Curious, asks his name before letting him get in the car. In thoughts, Shin realizes that the girl's Een Tang is darkened, which is a worrying sign. He introduces himself as Yang, but says he can be called by the second name. When the two enter a building, everyone is impressed with the beauty of Sun. Minnie wonders why she is walking with a man, for this is the first time they see her accompanied at a party. They keep walking to a table where Sun says they will sit down.
Jen agrees.
Before they can settle, someone calls the company director. Goin, the founder of the Yashin Group, presents himself with other entrepreneurs and says they will sit at the same table as Sun. Therefore, it is surrounded by several people, and everyone starts to propose gifts, leaving it uncomfortable before one of the men touches that her glass. Shane intervenes, takes the drink, and says she will drink for her. Entrepreneurs get angry and ask who he is. And what are you doing there? Shin is about to perform, but is interrupted by his friend, which says this is not the correct way to refuse a drink. From there, she would take control of the situation. Sun says he doesn't have much resistance to alcohol and can only drink a glass, asking for everyone's understanding. Delighted by her, the three entrepreneurs agree, but one of them, bothered, asks if it's not an exaggeration to drink just one glass. It is then that Chin Feng approaches. A buzz spread throughout the hall when people comment that he is the second young master of the Chin family, and that Sun has had problems with him before. Trying to intimidate her, Shin Feng approaches and says that last time she left without saying goodbye. So this time, you will have to drink the whole bottle of wine. It makes it clear that this is not a request, but an order. Sam tries to get rid of the situation by saying that drinking too much can bring problems, and asks if it could just be with a glass. Insistent, the man states that he reserved a presidential suite where she could rest after drinking. Distressed, Sun thinks to himself that he knows Chin Feng's intentions very well, and knows he drugs women without caring about anything. After she refuses to drink the wine, an older man loses her patience and calls her insolent, accusing her of pretending to be a good girl. Crying and scared, Sun reflects on his humble origin and as it took years to reach his position as a director. Compared to the son of the rich family, she is nothing. Realizing the situation, Yang intervenes. Take the wine from the businessman's hand and raise him angry. The man, surprised, asks who the boy is. Without hesitation, the protagonist hits the old man with a bottle of wine. Wounded, he falls to the floor shouting in pain, and asks how the boy dared to attack him. Something that even your father did. Assuming the situation control, Yang returns the question, questioning how the man dared to force the girl to drink. Everyone is shocked by the scene. They find it terrible because it involves the young master of the Chin and scary family, as they say the family has an old martial artist by their side. Concerned, Sun reflects on how he dragged the boy to this situation. She apologizes and says she will drink all the wine that night, stating that Yang is your friend and asking them to let him go. Rising furiously, businessman Shun says that the girl has no right to impose conditions, that the boy is also in danger and will die. Something happens, and the old man wins his eyes, shouting over his testicles. He falls to his knees on the floor, holding out between her legs, but she keeps shouting that she wants the dead boy. Yang approaches, touches man's forehead, and asks who should die that day. Mom fading, he asks which of the two will die first as he pushes the man's head against the floor. Someone intervenes and orders to stop. A gray-haired man tells us to let the other man let out. Accompanied by security guards, the eldest remains standing. Watching the scene, he screams again, ordering them to release the businessman. Everyone comments that he is the head of the Chun, known as Gino. The old man beside him exudes an immense aura, being a legendary old martial artist. Sun gets even more worried, while Fong calls his father, realizing that he is naked. The girl wonders how she can save her friend from this situation. Yang decides to release the man quickly, but watches the old while Feng runs to his father and his group of friends. He wonders if the bearded man and mustache is what they call a former Chinese martial arts master. Crying to his father, the businessman says he was kicked in the testicles and requires revenge. Annoyed, the old man orders his son to shut up and move away. He asks who the young man is. Another man intervenes, saying that the boy is a martial artist, but that, due to his must have recently entered the kingdom of mortal warriors. Yang approaches and asks if they want anything else of him. And what they want. Gino says the boy made him lose his dignity and wonders what he should do with him. But he adds that he is a kind person, and if the young man begs for mercy, he may let him go out whole. The martial artist advances, recognizing that the boy has impressive abilities for his age. Still, he says he will solve the situation. Yang is threatened and warned that he has moved the wrong people. Without shaking, he faces the Chinese elder, who advances quickly against him. The man approaches, touches the boy's shoulder, and tries to intimidate him, saying that if he begs for mercy, he can let him live. Without disturbing, Yang replies that he will not beg for anything. While Sun reflects on what has just happened, the protagonist grabs the elder by the head and asks if he has already chosen a coffin for his funeral. Annoyed by the provocation, the old man orders the boy to go to hell and try to attack him. But Yang defends himself and hits a punch in the mouth of the martial artist. With the strength of the blow, the man is thrown to the ground, which immediately cracks. The boy comments that the elder is really evil. Everyone gets wide and terrified as he asks who will be next. Gino is shocked to see that the old man was defeated by the young man and wonders how it was possible. Rising from the ground, the martial artist asks who the protagonist is and makes a comment about his cultivation. Quietly, the boy considers to answer who he is, but returns the question, wondering if the old man is worthy of knowing. Suddenly, a high noise fills the room. People cover their ears and wonder what is happening. Approaching the leader of the Chin family, the protagonist asks if he is Gino. Trembling with fear, man cannot formulate a sentence when confronted by the boy. Still staring and thinking about his next movement, Yang remembers that the Chiens also had participation in the tragedy that hit their family. A shot echoes, ordering someone to stop the boy. The guards approach. He says the young man should not act in a hurry. The men in black advance to capture the protagonist. The group of men tries to grab the boy, but with a single punch, Yang disperses them, throwing them away. Confident, he states that ordinary people cannot do anything against him. Understanding the severity of the situation, Gino begs for forgiveness, admitting his failure not to educate his son correctly. Listening to these words, Yang says he feels a lot, but it's time to charge the debt. Suddenly, someone orders him to stop. Another man approaches and, once again, requires both to retire. Analyzing the scene carefully, this man realizes that he is dealing with Shun, and he doesn't understand why he's on his knees. Old Shin celebrates, thinking that he is saved, still confident. It declares that even though it is a martial artist, it is worth nothing before the authorities. The man observes the situation more closely and realizes that the old man is also lying on the floor. He is amazed to see what the boy was able to. Approaching the man, he holds him by the hair and reports to a policeman that the man tried to attack a woman but was prevented in time. Even so, the policeman orders him to let him go, threatening to take it off if he does not obey. It is then revealed that the policeman is actually a woman, which impresses the protagonist. Once again, he insists that this is a personal matter and that it would be better if she didn't get involved. Trying to maintain control of the situation, the policeman points a gun to him and gives an end warning, ordering him to lift his hands. Frustrated, Yang wonders what the problem is and why there is no better to do. Sun holds her friend's hands, apologizes and promises that he will no longer get closer. He heading to her friend, she orders the conflict to end there. The boy is confused by her attitude, but the young woman makes it clear that if that continues, she will decide herself. Sun asks the police not to shoot, explaining that his friend has already surrendered. When they ask if they need to wait for the handcuffs, the girl reassures her friend, saying they will go to the police station just to give testimony and that everything will be well. In the security room, a policeman talks to the captain, saying that he watched images from the hotel cameras at least 10 times. However, part of the content was erased. Even so, what was left shows that Young acted in self-defense. The fact that part of the images have disappeared draws the policeman's attention, who asks what exactly it was removed. The images show Gino alongside an elder, but in the next picture, the martial artist is already on the floor, with no explanation of what happened. The policeman is intrigued as they arrived quickly at the scene, and no one would have had time to erase the recordings. She suspects that there is someone very powerful behind the boy. Without enough evidence, the woman concludes that she was self-defense and orders the boy's release. Celebrating his friend's freedom, Sun says he was right, and being free is much better. He also adds that when he gets home, he will take a shower to get rid of bad luck. Reflecting on everything that happened, the young man concludes that Gino and his son are a hidden danger to the girl and will need time to solve accounts with them. Meanwhile, Sun watches his friend and says he feels in him a dangerous and indescribable aura. Realizing the girl's eyes, he asks why she is acting like this, trying to disguise her thoughts. The young woman says she was thinking of taking him home and asks where he lives. The boy explains that has just arrived in town, and as you have not yet found a place to stay, will have to sleep in the park that night. With sympathy, she suggests that he sleeps in his home as he has an extra room. The boy is overwhelmed with so many possibilities and hesitates to accept it. Impatient, Sun asks again, and he finally agrees. Even though they let them go away, the policeman remains thoughtful about what happened. Knowing that Shin bodyguards are special forces soldiers, she doesn't understand how they couldn't defeat the boy. Realizing that he cannot deal with this situation alone, he decides to ask his older brother for help. She says she will send a video and needs him to identify a person. The mountains of Siberia are shown. The policeman's brother is exercising and thinks that his sister is always concerned about family business, constantly needing help. Of your help to solve problems. But at least he is the captain of the Dragon Spirit unit. And not just a simple policeman. He takes the tablet and decides to see what his sister said. Watching the security camera images, he comments that it is shameful to see a group of Special Forces veterans intimidating a boy. Observing more closely, he wonders if one of the people involved. It is an ancient martial artist. Seeing the boy closely, his brother concludes that he is not an ordinary martial artist. Without wasting time, he calls his sister. He says he wants all the information about the video as soon as possible. An apartment is shown. Sun leaves the bath, says he ended and warns Yang that he can go washing. Observing the situation, the protagonist thinks that the woman is really very carefree. He comes in to bathe and, while cleansing, remembers that he was saved 5 years ago by his master and thought it was a blessing. But it turned out to be the beginning of a nightmare. On the first day, without explanation, the old man locked him in a cage with a hungry tiger to fight. Surviving, he was promoted. After that, the old man taught him how to cultivate and took him to dangerous places where he faced deadly challenges. The young man faced death head-on several times. Anger and endless hatred have kept him alive so far. Finally, he says he will find everyone who attended the meeting in Vila Yanu at that time. In conclusion, he threatens everyone will pay dearly. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Sun realizes that there is no other clothes for the boy to change. When thinking about it, he realizes that he forgot to hide the underwear he had exchanged. Desperate, exclaims that your friend cannot see them. Quickly, she opens the bathroom door, asks Yang to leave, and says she needs to get something. But before she can, she is interrupted. The young man, without clothes, is standing in the bathroom and asks what she needs. Ashamed, the girl is speechless. The protagonist asks if she could not wait until he wore something. Blushing with shame, Sun says he is leaving and apologizes, insisting that he did not intend to take advantage of the situation. Lying on the bed, she repeats to herself that she saw nothing. Across the door, he tries to understand what happened and concludes that the girl probably won't leave the room so soon, but he has other subjects to solve. Eliminate evil by the root. The scene changes to the village of the Chin family. Gino is sitting at the table, visibly annoyed. His son asks him to stop shaking, saying it scares him. Furious, man slaps his son and says that if it weren't for him, the old man would not be seriously injured. Trying to defend himself, the boy says he still has his grandfather in the family. Even so, Gino says he does not feel safe and will not rest until the problem is eliminated. The next day, they will go to the hill for help from the old man. Fong celebrates, saying that once the protagonist is defeated, he will steal Sun for himself and torture her in front of his opponent. Someone approaches Sun's name and asks if the young man really dare to touch her. Ken Fong gets scared. The protagonist appears and says they need to talk about what happened. The man asks if he intends to kill him. Releasing power, the protagonist wonders if they really believe it. Tremendous, the boy replies yes. A purple light touches Fong's neck directly. The protagonist asks again if they still think he wouldn't kill someone. Once again, he wonders if the boy keeps believing it. Gino panicked to see his injured son and says he does not keep a grudge for what happened. Zoming, Yang comments that it is funny that man say that. He decides to ask the patriarch of the family Chun. Coming back in time, he wants to know if a certain man remembers the banquet in the village 5 years ago and the couple who was murdered. Quickly, the man realizes who the boy is before him, but before he can react, he receives a violent blow to his face. The man says it is impossible because the young man should be dead. The protagonist reveals a secret. He is not an old martial artist, but a cultivator. He continues to explain that for practitioners like him, even with a powerful master, an entire clan of martial artists means nothing. In a single movement, Subtitle Adriana Zanato. He releases power against man, making him fall to the ground. The scene changes to Mount Wei. A man is levitating over the mountain. It's Chinyanu. He receives a large amount of energy and quickly realizes that his son and grandson were killed. Furious, he wonders who dared to destroy his family. Without hesitation, he swears to the heavens who will find the killer and shatter him. Far from there, another young man is also floating in the air, surrounded by flames while cultivating. He thinks that China's spiritual energy is very weak and insufficient for his needs. To continue cultivating, you will need some pills, but before that, you plan to visit your parents' tombs on the Tiandan mountain. For their death anniversary will be in a week. Holding a stone in his hands, he says he was a gift from his father when he was 11. But it seems to be just a common stone. Looking more closely, realizes that there are words written in the object. Although they are unquestionable, he understands that the stone needs a drop of blood to identify its owner. He puts a drop over the stone and suddenly something happens, making him surprised. He sighs, saying he is very tired and cannot stand it anymore. The scene shows a lot with several headstones. The young man is lying on the floor, shirtless and dirty, still feeling the effects of the fall. With a headache, he watches the area around him and notices a dark mist. Something catches your eye and scares him. Desperate, he wonders what kind of place is that. Looking around, he feels a powerful energy. Suddenly, a strange creature appears and says that he does not understand as a simple human at the final stage of Rugi, he dared to enter the reincarnation cemetery. The monster continues, stating that even if the young man wanted, he would not be able to wake up or the weakest of the tombstone. The creature threatens him, saying that if he does not want to die, he should leave immediately. Suddenly the young man wakes up scared and realizes that he is in his bed. He gets up, confused by what has just happened. His first thought is about the stone that the elders said to be an ancient treasure. Thinking deeply, he remembers the creature's words, who said he could only invoke the great powers of the tombstone if he reached a certain level of strength. Since there are 100 tombstones in the reincarnation cemetery, it means that there are 100 great powers. Someone knocks on the door and asks if Yang is awake. It's Sound, saying that lunch is ready and that it should eat before it cools. Quickly, the boy responds that he is already going. But the reincarnation cemetery continues to echo in his mind. Later he sits at the table to eat. So Sun jokes that she treats him so well that he should offer his own body to warm her in winter. Humorous, the young woman replies that she does not need this, as the house has heating on the floor. But, if he really wants to stay, it is not impossible. He just needs to pay rent and take care of his own tasks. With no money, he says he could not pay the rent, which makes the girl a little frustrated. The protagonist takes a piece of paper and starts writing something. He delivers to his friend, who looks confused, not understanding what is happening. He explains that it is a recipe for a skincare product and that the rent would no longer be a problem. Soon still does not understand the situation very well. With a plan in mind, he says that the company where the girl works is the cosmetics business, and that if it shows the revenue to them, it can be worth more than 10 million. The phone starts ringing, and the girl realizes that she is Miss Xia. Listening to the name, the protagonist is thoughtful. Sun is called for a meeting and says he's going. Before leaving, she says goodbye to her friend and advises him to look for a job. Yang comments that he heard that Chinese medicine was disappearing, but did not think it was true later in the city center. Someone is selling an incredible bone rejuvenating with 20% discount to the first buyers. In addition, the treatment promises to cure all diseases for only yen 100,000. Who is selling his young chain? Using a megaphone to get attention. Some people gather to hear, but say he is crazy about charging such an absurd price and suggests calling the police. Realizing the risk, the young man decides that it is better to change his business elsewhere and ask people to make their way. Suddenly a girl appears and asks him to follow her. He is taken to a house. The young woman, with pink hair, says this is her home. The boy is impressed with the size, and she says she doesn't have to worry, as he will heal her family quickly. But the girl clarifies that she didn't bring him there to heal anyone. The real reason was his ability to lie and deceive. The young man defends himself, saying he is neither liar nor fraudulent. Also, he says he has no time for games and suggests that the girl look for someone else. However, she gives him a card with 100,000 yuan. With the money in hand, the boy agrees to do whatever he wants. She explains that her father is very sick and has only a few days of life. Also, you fear your mother does something irrational if the worst happens. The girl asks the young man to bring her father to a doctor and pretend to go to the mountains before he dies, helping her mother deal with the loss. The protagonist thinks this is not the right way to use it, but since he is there, he accepts the mission and promises to fulfill it successfully. Laughing, the girl says that if he had not accepted, she would have called the police. Someone opens the door and asks if the young woman has come back. The person wonders if he brought strangers home, but the girl guarantees that there is nothing to worry about. The two go to her father's room. She introduces herself as gay and says she has just returned. Yang evaluates the situation and realizes that no medicine can save the old man. The girl cries because the energy of death has already taken over her father's chest. As soon as you hit your head, not even an immortal can save you. Explaining the situation, Gaia says her father was diagnosed with advanced lung cancer. The doctor stated that the patient was only a few days old. Holding the protagonist's hands, the girl begged for help and promised to support him financially. Owen approached. It was the girl's mother. She asked if it was true that the girl's father didn't have much life. The girl was shaken, for he had agreed with the doctor not to tell her mother about the father's condition. The man appeared and said she should not have lied. He said he has already organized the funeral and promised a decent burial for their father. The girl said he had no right to act so coldly. The man, in turn, he said he couldn't stand to see his father suffer and assured him that he would not mistreat his sister when he assumed family responsibilities. Crying a lot, the mother said she could not live without her husband and would die with him. It was then that the girl realized what was happening. When he died, the inheritance would be divided, and his brother intended to get rid of his mother. Furious, the girl asked if he really wanted to kill his own mother and accused him not to care about his sick father. The two started arguing, and their brother threatened to start the sister's mouth. To defend her, the protagonist punched him, who fell to the floor. Shocked by the scene, the mother intervened. The butler asked who the young man was, and if he knew that the man would become the head of the family Shun in a few days. Yang Chung raised his fingers and said he could save the patient, but it would cost 100 million. All were deeply shaken by the patriarch's condition. Desperate, the mother asked if the protagonist was really the right person to save Street. The girl reassured her, saying she had known the young man a long time ago. Annoyed, the man did not believe the story and accused his sister of hiring a charlatan. Of the father, he threatened her, saying that if his father died, it would be her fault and that he would send Yang to jail. The protagonist watched the old lying in bed, on the brink of death. With a certain energy, he said that the man was lucky to find him. Right, his master taught him a technique capable of bringing the elder back from the edge of death, activating his powers. The young man invoked spirits and forces of nature to start healing. While Yang continued to chant mystical words, Hua was involved in purple energy. Soon the old man began to emit power through the eyes, mouth, and nose. The protagonist realized that the energy of death was blocked, but there was still one last remnant of it. If he could eliminate him, he could save the elder's life. The intense energy continued to circulate around the old man while Yang kept his statements. Suddenly, all the energy of death was expelled from man's body. With extended hands, the protagonist released a new wave of power and ordered the energy of death to dissipate. In the air, the old man expelled the energy through his mouth, nose, and eyes before falling exhausted on the bed. The protagonist reflected that he did not expect to spend so much energy to save the man and realized that he needed more training. Leaving the room, he informed his family that the elder would wake up soon, shocking everyone. Yang said that they could check with their own eyes what he had done and asked for the payment. The family matriarch handed him a card. At first, the man told his mother that it was impossible for the elder to have been healed because he had terminal cancer and made no sense that he was well. The protagonist explained that he had saved the man and that the 10 million were his payment for the service. However, the man insisted that he wanted to see the results first. Decided, the protagonist forbade the boy from entering the room and said the elder would wake up. But only 3 days ago, grabbing the boy, he twisted his arm and threw him to the floor. He raised the card and stated that he would get the money, saying to call him in 3 days, as he would still need to administer medicines to the street. Furious, Mong said that bastard not only assaulted him but also stole his money, threatening to call the police. The girl looked to the side and something caught her eye. Suddenly Hua got up and left the room, leaving everyone in shock. Desperate, the brother could not understand how it was possible. Hua asked where he was. It was the doctor who healed him. Calling for his wife and daughter, he thanked the miracle and said he felt much better. The elder commented that his son had done good things recently, all for the sake of family security. But to everyone's surprise, he revealed that he knew exactly what his son had done while he was sick, and he stated that he would not give him a single penny, for if it were not for the doctor, his son would have let him die. Meanwhile, in the homemade group building, a meeting was underway. Everyone was concerned because the company's actions were falling, which represented a big problem. They feared for the company's future, knowing that if they didn't launch something innovative, they would go bankrupt. It was then that Sam approached the meeting room. While everyone discusses what to do, the girl remains thoughtful, focused on finding a solution for the company. Suddenly, she feels something inside her bra and remembers the ticket Yang left her earlier. Not understanding how the ticket ended up there, she reads and sees something about a beauty pill. However, it rules out the idea, thinking that the formula of this product can be worth about 10 million. Suddenly, someone sneaked from behind and pulls the ticket out of his hand. She is a woman dressed in red, who takes the paper and asks what the girl was hiding. She reads the message and questions what this pill of beauty would be. Annoyed, Sony requires the ticket to be returned immediately. But the woman ridicules her, saying she was delivered by an imposter, but is being treated like a treasure. Mocking even more, she implies that the girl slept with someone to get the ticket. Sun, furious, decides to face her, accusing Suna of being who really sells. She orders Suna to return the note, but Suna refuses, saying she will simply throw it away and tearing it. Suna is speechless and without reaction. After a brief silence, she shouts that the woman cannot intimidate people in this way, and that, even though it is just a piece of paper, it still belongs to it. Then slap the opponent. The discussion between the two intensifies, and the other executives observe, worried. Sun and Suna start pulling their hair from each other and changing insults while fighting fiercely. One threat to another of death, and the other associates try to separate the fight. Suddenly the door opens and someone enters. A young blonde watches the scene and catches the eye of the two who were fighting. It's Shirahaku, the president of the company, who is furious with the confusion. The moment she arrives, they both stop immediately and are surprised. With a calmer environment, the meeting begins and the president explains the reason for the call. She points out that other companies are creating innovative products, while theirs has been stagnant for a long time. Associates try to justify themselves, but they have no arguments. C points out that in the last 3 years, there has been no progress in the products, which is a big problem. Employees try to defend themselves, saying they have worked hard, but the competition is very strong. They claim to have traveled around the world in search of new formulas, but found few options. The president acknowledges that formulas are really rare, but recalls that she spent 5 years building the group she has today to support her parents. She insists that this is not the time to give up. Wanting to harm Sun, Suna mentions that she can have the solution. Since it was holding a note on the beauty pill, one of the associates is shocked because it was believed that this formula had been lost for centuries. Everyone celebrates, saying that if the young woman really has this formula, the company will be saved. Kay asks if this is true, if she really has the means to create the pill. Embarrassed, the young woman says no, that it was just something someone wrote. Even so, the president asks to see the ticket. Sun delivers the roll torn into pieces and apologizes, saying it was just a joke of a friend. Associates are confused about how a valuable formula could be written in a simple piece of paper. Suna celebrates for making Sun look foolish. Suddenly, one of the members asks everyone to wait a moment. He takes a piece of paper and examines closely, stating that there is something real there. The meeting continues in the midst of tension. Furious, the man says he saw Suna tear the roll and accuses her of harming the company, for the formula was extremely necessary. Losing control, the director shouts that Suna should not stay at the meeting, and warns that if they cannot recover the formula, it will face legal consequences. Trying to defend herself, Suna says she didn't know the ticket was real, and that had no intention of causing problems. But everyone comes into despair when he realizes that the formula was genuine and that if they can recover it, they can create many new products. Without wasting time, C orders everyone to help the director collect the pieces of paper to try to rebuild the revenue. Suddenly someone calls Suna. She is the director, who is furious and demands to know why the young woman tore the roll of the sound hands. Making a firm decision, director demites Suna and demean her to work as a clerk at the company's new store. Later at night, Sun returns home and calls for Yang, announcing his arrival. But you realize that the boy is not there. Thoughtful, she admits that she did not believe that the formula was real. She then wonders if her friend will return her or will never return. As he reflects, he realizes that he is incredibly talented and writes secret recipes. However, she soon realizes that in the end he remains a stranger to her. While asking how he allowed him to enter his home, the young woman continues to about the boy, wondering if, upon discovering his true identity, he will disappear. Suddenly a hand extends and touches the girl's head. It's Yang Chong, who says she heard her call him. Startled, Sun asks when his friend came back. He replies that he recently returned and heard her say his name. Yang sits next to the girl, who looks nervous and begins to stutter. He asks, why is she acting like this? Studiously, she apologizes for tearing the recipe he gave her. Quietly, Yang says that recipe was only for beginners, and asks if she would like something more powerful, making her surprised with her words. Tired, he announces that he is going to sleep early, but soon interrupts him, saying he has something to ask. He decides to hear, but reinforces that he is very tired. Quickly, she mentions that she remembered having found him when he wanted to see Xia, and that after the meeting, a family woman said she also wanted to see him. With disgust, the boy replies that it is not available. Soon does not understand and points out that he even offended the entire security department just to see this woman. Yang does not understand and comments that he was ignored the day before, but now the woman wants to help him. The girl tries to explain, but Yang decides to accept to meet Kia, although he says he will decide whether or not he will see the company's president. Tired, he closes the bedroom door and warns that they will speak the next day. Elsewhere, the phone rings. Sun Yang is on the line. Mrs. Xia answers and asks what Yang said about the issue. She informs that she must go personally find the boy. He says there is no problem and will think about it, but for now he has asked a friend to keep the boy under surveillance. Thoughtful, she finds it interesting that the protagonist caused a confusion in the office and is now behaving differently. The next morning, a meeting hall is presented. Yang watches the place and realizes that the biggest pharmacy is inside it. Upon entering, he sees a huge line and decides to take a walk to analyze the environment. Something catches your eye, a work of art that momentarily leaves you paralyzed. He examines the painting and comments that, for a replica, it is not bad. A young woman approaches and asks where he came from. Zurin and Zuzi Chuan are presented. The girl questions how he dared to say that this treasure is a replica. Rin asks her granddaughter not to be rude, but she defends herself, stating that the boy called the fake paintings. The elder then asks how he can say this, as the paintings were evaluated by several collectors. Without shaking, Young replies that this only proves that all collectors don't know what they are talking about. He maintains his opinion that painting is an excellent imitation. For a moment, he believes he has found something valuable in the store, but soon concludes not. Annoyed by his words, Zixuan shouts with him. Her grandfather tries to stop her, but she insists that she will teach a lesson to the protagonist. Yang watches the girl, who runs toward him and tries to kick him. Rin panics because he knows that his granddaughter practices martial arts and could kill the boy. However, at the time of the attack, Yang holds his foot in the air. He mocks her, asking if this is all she can do. Zixuan, surprised, does not believe it was stopped. Yang keeps holding the girl's foot, and she calls him a pervert for holding her for so long. Without hesitation, he plays her. The protagonist comments that he did not expect to find a martial artist there, and notes that his technique seems more appropriate for men than for women. Furious, Zixuan promises that he won't let him leave. His grandfather asks her to stop. He tries to argue, but Rain interrupts her, saying that the boy just blocked his kick, which is already impressive. Still, Zixuan tries to justify himself, claiming he was taken by surprise. Yang then asks her a question. Want to know if she uses the real Kai this way? A great energy emanates from him, making the girl fall to the floor, unable to believe what she is seeing. Quickly, she tells her grandfather to escape, realizing that the boy is very dangerous. But Ren apologizes, explaining that his granddaughter does not recognize the danger, and that it is still a child. The elder asks Zixuan to apologize to the boy. Then he asks Yang to explain why the painting is false, as he sees no clue. Yang releases a wave of energy in painting and says that now all will see. Subscriptions begin to appear on the work, and the boy explains that it is difficult to distinguish this painting from a genuine, so counterfeiters avoid using only those signatures. Suddenly, someone interrupts the explanation, announcing that the herbs requested by Mr. Yang arrive. Yang thanks Miss Yu for delivering the order in person. She replies that it is an honor to serve her. He asks if he has enough money to pay, and Yang comments that he is flexible, but admits that he still likes her rebellious attitude before. Annoyed, she retorts that the boy is unbearable and that if his master were present, he would be troubled. However, Rin scolds his granddaughter, stating that the boy's strength is not inferior to her master. Surprised, the young woman hides behind her grandfather, who comments that she was too spoiled. To end the conversation, the elder mentions that the boy's request is much larger than the amount of herbs available in the store, and that he will need to wait a few days. The boy says this is not a problem, and he will pay with the fortune he received. He adds that he will come back in a few days to get what is missing. After the boy leaves, Rin tells his granddaughter that he is part of the family, and she wonders how his grandfather knows his name. But the old man thinks that if he really says he is, the city will never have peace. Meanwhile, Yang walks around the city, reflecting that the anniversary of his parents' death is approaching. He decides to make some preparations, but believes there is a traitor who needs to be eliminated first. In the pharmacy, Zixuan is incredulous to hear that the boy is stronger than his master, but his grandfather corrects her, saying that he is much stronger. The young woman gets even more shocked. Ren begins to explain what the boy represents, and that for people like him, ordinary humans are just ants. Even so, the girl doesn't believe and asks how young someone can be a great master. Once again, your grandfather corrects her. saying that he is not a great master, but something much more terrifying, and that the Zhu family cannot afford to be his enemy. In the street, a man follows Yi, believing that he is the doctor that Mr. Zena is looking for. He thinks that if he follows him correctly, he can gain the reward. Yang enters an alley, and the persecutor wonders if he was discovered. Looking around, the man is confused, because Yang disappeared. As he tries to understand where the boy went, he does not realize that he is suddenly coming down from above. The protagonist touches the persecutor's head and asks if he was looking for him. Annoyed, Yang requires a reason not to kill him, and the man promises to explain everything. He presents himself as Fan Tamong, a private detective, and begins to share details about his life. However, Yang gets even more annoyed and says he doesn't care about it, just want to know who sent him. Detective explains that Manhwa has placed a recommendation, compensates for $1 million to find the thoughtful boy. The protagonist realizes that if there is no treatment in 3 days, the old man will die. Trying to make a deal, the detective suggests that the boy introduces himself to Ryu and divide the reward. But the boy, without shaking, replies that if the old man really wants to survive, he should not use tricks. Impatient, asks if there is anything else to add. On his knees, the persecutor confesses that Shin hired him because he didn't know where to find the boy. A building is presented and Sun appears. The boy wonders why the girl started dressing so well suddenly. She explains that she is taking him to buy new clothes and a cell phone so they can keep in touch. He finds it all a nuisance. Trying to reassure him, the girl tells him not to worry about money, because she will buy the clothes for him. The two go to the mall, and the protagonist experiences some clothes. Happy, Sun says he looks much more beautiful when he is well dressed. She adds that he can get the girl's attention if he walks like this on the campus, which, still trying to know more about him, Sun asks if he wants a girlfriend and offers to introduce him to someone. Realizing the situation, she asks if he never dated and if he is an innocent virgin. Meanwhile, he reflects that in recent years he has only devoted himself to cultivation. But before the fall of his family, he liked a girl. At the time, he sent a love letter to her and received an answer.
The girl said she would leave with him if he declared his love publicly.
He did it, but she rejected him in front of everyone. Since then, he has become self-destructive and has been seen as a failed by others. Lost in thoughts and memories, he begins to cultivate without realizing it. Sun notes that his words hurt his self-esteem. Trying to fix the situation, the girl says she never dated, but is alive. And well, tired of the conversation, the boy tells her to stop these nonsense and focus on buying clothes. The two continue to walk the mall until someone recognizes Sun. A red-haired woman greets her, saying she hasn't seen her for years, and asks if the boy next door is her boyfriend. Quickly, Shin recognizes the duo and, in a mocking way, comments that Sun's taste has not changed. Since at the time of school, she walked with Ishin, and now her boyfriend is still a poor failed. Watching the boy more carefully, one says he looks familiar. It looks like the family loser and the man who accompanies him. He says he doesn't know the story and asks to tell. The girl explains and concludes by saying that the boy never returned to school. And then, your family was exterminated. These words make Yang reflect, and he begins to cultivate again. Annoyed, he says he will make the woman be silent forever. Noticing that, Soon holds his friend's arm and asks to leave it, suggesting that they continue to buy clothes. But the woman does not give up and continues to tease, calling the two poor. Then he tells his companion that he also wants to buy clothes. As they leave, Yang comments that he could have resolved the situation, but Sun reminds him of the incident at the police station a few days ago. They keep walking and find a suit that looks perfect for the boy. A saleswoman interrupts them and says this is the best jacket in the store, costing 360,000 yuan. Thoughtful, the girl realizes that there are only 300 on the card. Then he tells his friend that the clothes don't match him so much. During the conversation, Rin appears laughing and says the girl has no money and doesn't have to make excuses. Sun tries to defend herself, saying that if she is paying something, it must be for an outfit that matches. Rin's still mocking and mentions the illness of the girl's brother, leaving her furious. The woman then says her best friend is Chuan. And if attacked, your aggressor can no longer stay in Jiangqing. She keeps teasing and challenging Sun to hit her. Before Sun can react, Yang intervenes and slaps his wife, knocking her on the floor. The boy again cultivates and says the woman was right to want to be silent forever. Everyone is shocked by what happened. Taking her hand to her face, the woman gets up furious and asks how the boy dared to hit her, threatening her boyfriend. Yang says he doesn't mind who is her boyfriend. The boy, who was filming the incident, intrudes and claims to be the CFO of the Buyman Group, earning 5 million a year. The protagonist just thinks this is extreme arrogance. At this point, Shunhua enters the mall talking to his son. Note the situation, he approaches and asks who is using the name of the Bayman Group to press Dr. Ye. The man is shocked and speechless to realize that he is talking to the president of the company. Sun does not understand why someone so important is there and fears that if she supports Han, the consequences are terrible. The woman and her boyfriend try to flatter Shinhua, saying they admire him, but he ignores them and walks toward Yi. Taking the boy's hands, he says he had been looking for him for a long time and that if he did not find him, his heart would be broken. Yang doesn't understand why Hua is trying to please him. Sun also doesn't understand how his friend knows someone so powerful in the city. During the conversation, the boy comments that he was not valued by the man of the man. Shane replies that she has already given them a lesson. He then orders his son to kneel and apologize. Obeying his father, the boy kneels and sincerely apologizes for what happened. Confused, Bayman's CFO comments that he has never seen this man kneel or apologize to anyone. Everyone gets curious about Ye's past. Meanwhile, the boy calls Sun and says he will buy clothes for her, but Hua doesn't want to let him out. No one understands how Yang dares to ignore Shinhua, get even more perplexed with what just happened. The oldest man, in turn, rebukes his son, saying that if he does not get the forgiveness of Yi, will have to remain kneeling forever. At this point, a company director approaches and tries to say that it was all a misunderstanding. Furious, Shinhua questions how the man had the courage to offend Mr. Yang using the company name. Without hesitation, he declares that from today the man is fired. Hua feels that his life is in the boy's hands and fears his own security. He realizes that he offended a great man and tries to redeem himself. Elsewhere, Sun celebrates the clothes the boy bought for her and wonders how he got it. Since I had little money. Even so, she thanks for the gesture. Yi, in turn, he thinks the girl chose only items on sale because he believed he was out of money. This concludes Yu that she is a good person. On the way out of the mall, Shinhua approaches Sun and apologizes for the insults she suffered, offering gifts as an apology. It makes her awkwardly. Looking at the gifts more closely, she realizes that they are exactly the clothes she liked, but did not buy because of the price. Yang realizes that the old man is trying to conquer the girl to approach him and find it interesting. Quickly, the boy says Hua and says he will give him a last chance. Exactly 9 o'clock in the morning, he will be at the Shun family home, where you can save or end the life of man. The old man says it will be an honor to help the young man. A mansion is presented and during a conversation with Xian, which does not confirm that it is true. This boy is indeed Yang Chen. She notes that her personality has changed a lot, but her appearance remains the same as her name. Listening to the story, a friend asks if it is true that the boy has returned. The woman says she has dealt with Shinhua before and describes him as a very sophisticated and respectful man. She adds that she does not understand how he could bend before a young man, concluding that the boy must be very powerful or occupy a high-level position. Thoughtful comments that even if he survived, he was a fool and the old man would never bow before him. Hurt, the woman tries to convince her friend that this is the same Yang Chun. Impassive, the girl says that 5 years ago his family knelt before hers. Metropolitan apartments are presented. There are many gift boxes scattered on the floor. Sun asks his friend when he met Mr. Shun, impressed with the situation. Noticing the joy of his friend, the boy smiles. The young woman asks again if Yang is sure she doesn't want to meet Xia. To convince him, she says the woman is very beautiful and does not understand how he can resist. But Yang gets annoyed and says he will watch TV. In the news, it is announced that 2 male bodies were found in a mansion. Victims were identified as Chun Jianu and his son, Chen Fong, and the crime is considered premeditated murder. Hearing this, Sun is surprised by the news, but Yang interrupts, saying that death is normal. He continues to say he is a great killer. Sun asks him not to speak these nonsense and walks away. The girl says she will try some clothes and leave. Yang is thoughtful, reflecting that these days, no one else believes in the truth. He leaves at night, saying he needs to buy some supplies at a Chinese pharmacy. On the way, something catches your eye. A woman approaches and greets him. She is a police officer, and she celebrates for finding him again. Yang believes she is trouble and decides to avoid any involvement. Trying to escape the situation, he says he is very busy and cannot talk. But with a trick in the sleeve, the woman asks what happened to the Chen family, and if he was responsible. Then she mentions her family, making the boy stop immediately. With a slight smile, the policeman says she never imagined that someone as strong as he could just be a white family trash. Yang gets annoyed and asks what she means, grabbing her by the neck. She replies that there are things she can't say at the moment, but asks to have dinner with him. Losing patience, Yang releases her and says dinner will not be necessary. While he walks away, the policeman thinks the boy is too young to master old martial arts and should not be that strong. At home, the protagonist is in the kitchen separating herbs and stones in bowls. He decides to use the microwave to make some pills. But the plan is more difficult than expected.
As he opened the microwave door, he celebrates that he has managed to make at least 5 pills.
He notes that this is more than enough to treat Shinhwa. In the apartment, Sun wakes up in the morning. When opening his eyes, he perceives something. Yang is leaving home. She asks where he's going. He quickly replies that he will save lives and asks her to call if something happens. As soon as he leaves, the girl comments that her friend speaks a lot of bullshit, insisting that to be a doctor, although admitting that perhaps he is good at this. Reflecting, she remembers that the birthday of the young family's death is approaching and will spend the date alone. Once again, sad, the young woman begins to wonder why the family was destroyed. Uncle Yu was fair and Yang Chen was kind too. Elsewhere, someone approaches. Top of a place, 2 men leave the building, commenting on the girl and wondering if she is waiting for a man or a woman. One of them concludes that a woman like her would never retreat to wait for a man. At that moment, Yu appears and says they are wrong, stating that the girl would never be there waiting for them. Trying to defend itself, one of the man presents herself as the little prince, while the other boasts of having already won many girls in games. Annoyed, they ask who the boy is and what he is thinking. Mocking, Yu replies that someone is waiting for him. The 2 men doubt, believing that such a beautiful girl would never pay attention to a loser. Upon realizing the presence of the man, she approaches and says she was waiting for him for a long time. The protagonist apologizes for the delay, while the girl repeats she was waiting for him. So she asks if the young people are his friends. She warns about the danger of strangers in the area. The 2 young people are embarrassed to realize they were foolish. Quickly, they arrive at the Shin family home. In the living room, the boy delivers the pills to the family patriarch. The man asks if only taking the medicine will be sufficient to cure him, without needing acupuncture or medicinal teas. The mother suggests surgery, saying that he may endure, but Yang orders the old man to take all 5 tablets at once. After swallowing the medicines, something happens. The old man begins to emit a strong yellow energy, surprising everyone. He feels his body wrapped in a hot chain, experiencing unique relaxation. He says he is even stronger than in his youth. Once again, he thanks the boy and promises to never forget his help. As a payment, it offers 100 million yen. But besides, Hua gives him the key to an empty. The protagonist reflects that having a home would be convenient. He also considers that the old man is part of the business circle and must know valuable information, such as the Tenzin Group. He explains that the group was founded by his father, but was taken after an accident, and he has no news since then. Accepting the house, he refuses dinner for now, saying that he himself will decide the day and place. Then he says goodbye quickly. The scene changes to a warehouse at the meeting hall. There are several bags full of herbs. Someone celebrates the arrival of the Lord. It is Ren who ensures that herbs are fresh, newly arrived. Evaluating the products, Yang says they are better than expected and decides to buy everything. Realizing the boy's interest, the old man charges 5 million for herbs. But the protagonist knows that the actual price should be tens of millions. Even so, he agrees to pay and asks about the old man's granddaughter. The man explains that Zichuan went for a walk with the master and will return later. Meanwhile, the protagonist writes something quickly, starts the page, and gives her the old man, asking him to take her to his granddaughter. He says Stang will understand when reading. Ren agrees. Before leaving, the boy asks Zun where he can buy an alchemy oven in the city. Since doing pills in an ordinary stove is difficult, Ren is surprised to realize that the boy knows how to make pills. He remembers the rumors that Chinese alchemists have disappeared thousands of years ago, making these pills extremely valuable. While Ren reflects on this, the boy is disconcerting, saying he doesn't know how to make pills, and who just likes to collect ovens. The old man mentions an auction, and the protagonist decides to go when it is the right time. Hours later, Zishuan returns. Ren asks if his granddaughter caused problems for the master. Annoyed, the girl responds that this is not that type of person. The old man mentions that he asked her to apologize to Yang, but she fled, which makes her even more annoyed. The master, listening to great powers, corrects the girl, saying that there are powerful people around the world. Tired of the conversation, Ren hands the note to the granddaughter. Confused, the girl says she can't read the writing. She throws the paper away, saying that the lyrics are ugly and will not read. When the paper flies, the master takes him and wonders if that could be useful for Zishuan. When looking at writing, he is sure he belongs to a true master. Desperate, he calls the old Ziyu and asks to be presented to Uai, whom he recognizes as an ex. Ren is worried and asks what is wrong with writing. The master explains that the technique used by the girl. It is the Kaong heart method, which he developed in his youth, but was incomplete. He continued training and improved the technique, but it affected his internal organs. Zishuan finally understands why he feels discomfort when he practices for a long time. Master reassures her, saying that she doesn't have to be afraid. because he just wants to help her improve her ability. However, he warns that if he continues to practice in the same way, he may die. Concerned, the grandfather asks what can be done. For if something happens to Kim, the Zhu family will suffer the consequences. Laughing, the master says the ticket contains amazing techniques and that it is a great luck to have received it. He claims that Yang is a noble person. Hearing this, Zishuan wonders who this boy could be, as even his master considers him so important. The scene changes to the outskirts of Daeju apartment. Yang evaluates the house he received from Hua, and it is surprised to find that it actually won an entire mansion upon entering. Is impressed with the decoration. The place is already completely immobilized, so he doesn't have to worry about it. However, he feels a strange loneliness to live alone in such a large place. Thoughtful, he imagines how good it would be if Sun Yang were there with him. He remembers that the girl mentioned that she needed to solve something in her hometown. Night, Yang admits that she is worried about her. He remembers his family and how happy and harmonious they were, even living in a small house. But now, he is the only one that was left. The next day, he marks another birthday of his parents' death and, once again, swears revenge. He declares that he emerged from the darkness. Subtitled by Sonia Roberti. Your family's killers to the tomb. The bell plays, and he realizes that the medicinal herbs arrived. When you leave, you see a great truck discharging the delivery. It celebrates for being in the village, as there is plenty of room to store the herbs. Lu King calls him, confirming that herbs were delivered and saying that he can contact if he needs anything else. The master appears, and Shin quickly realizes that he is an ancient martial warrior. Educably, he invites them to enter, but first asks who the master is. Without hesitation, the man kneels and thanks the master for saving his life. Zishuan is surprised by the scene, and you don't understand very well what is happening. Still kneeling, the man presents himself as the girl's master and explains about the mental method Kaon. Curious, he asks why the man called him a grandmaster. Confused, it does not understand how such a powerful martial artist may not know the meaning of this title. Chen explains that he recently got out of the mountain, and so you know little about the Chinese martial arts. Understanding the situation, the man begins to explain about martial arts, detailing how they work, their levels and examples. He listens closely and realizes that he is a little different from what his own master has taught him, but can understand. The explanation continues, and the protagonist realizes that the power of martial arts is much greater than he imagined. He then asks if there are many masters in China. Loken says he is not sure, but explains that most masters are linked to the country's large families. He mentions the 4 great families of Jiashan, Chu, Shao, Lu, and Qi. The protagonist remembers being threatened by Gino before his death and wonders when his master will come to seek revenge. The name Chun arises again in his mind, and hearing a family once again, he swears revenge, declaring that the girl will understand who is really untouchable. Analyzing the protagonist's aura, Loken realizes that he is incredibly oppressive. Terrified, the man asks how many lives he had to take to reach such a young skill. Later, worried about Sun, he wonders why she didn't answer the phone. He imagines if something happened to his family and decides that if he does not receive news, he will go after her. Feeling hungry, he decides to go out to eat. Looking around, she sees a restaurant belonging to Wan Ying's family, an old friend of school. With a good memory, he remembers that the food was amazing and always ate there before going to school. Upon entering, you realize that the place is empty, although you were usually very busy, yet he sits and asks for some skewers and drinks. The waitress apologizes and says that the restaurant is closing and cannot serve it. She mentions that they are moving and invites him to visit the new place. He notices that the woman has a bruise on the face. Shortly thereafter, a man appears and tells her not to send customers away. He delivers a dish to the protagonist, and he says he can stay. It was Uncle Wang that tells Yang that he will be the last client and can eat whatever he wants. Wang himself also has visible injuries. Encouraged to eat, the protagonist decides to try the food, and the aroma transports him to his childhood. Suddenly, a chair is thrown toward him, but he destroys her only with his energy. He gets up and faces the broken object. Some men are stopped at the door, mocking him. However, they make it clear that they are not there because of them and order him to leave. Wang realizes that it is Mr. C. Furious. The man asks how Wang dares serving food without first paying the protection fee. Frightened, Wang explains that they are closing the restaurant and begs longer to pay off their debts. Without mercy, the collector accuses him of trying to escape, stating that he already knows the address of a new place. He threatens to destroy the restaurant if they do not pay 50,000 yuan and still warns that Yuan will be killed. Once again, the collector sends the protagonist out. Annoyed, he asks if they are really giving him orders. The man turns to him and asks if he is serious, but the young man just mocks him. The collector advances to attack him, but the protagonist hits him with a slap on his face so strong that he throws him to the floor. Calmly, the boy asks if he fell only with a slap. Enraged, the man screams to the protagonist, going to hell, and tries to attack again, but takes another blow that makes him fly and gets stuck in the ceiling. The henchmen panic. Yang is not over yet. He turns to the other two men and orders them to leave immediately. Otherwise, it warns that it will not be so generous. Quickly, men kneel, begging for mercy. Severely wounded men beg for forgiveness and promise not to repeat their actions.
They apologize for the problem caused and guarantee that they will no longer disturb Uncle Wan.
Even so, he continues to threaten them, saying he doesn't want to see the group on that street never again. The group thanks you for having their lives spared. After the incident, the boy realizes that he left a mess in the bathroom and regrets not making men clean before they leave. Lord and Mrs. Wong. They know the boy and celebrate the fact that he is alive. Surprised that they remember him, he gets emotional. The couple says it is wonderful to see him again, and the protagonist agrees, stating that he returned. Later, Yang decides to go to the apartment to see if Sun is at home. Upon entering, you notice a young woman standing on the spot, and explains that it came because she was not answering her calls. Before he can say anything else, the woman turns around, and he realizes that he is not Sun, but someone else. That is right in front of you, confronting him. Even so, he asks who she is. She replies that he should recognize her, because it caused a great confusion in the lobby of the company. Then he realizes that this is Miss Xia and asks what she is doing there. The young woman explains that she has the key to her best friend's house, but wants to know why he is living there. The protagonist tells his situation while the girl watches him closely. Annoyed, he tells her to leave and discuss this with her friend in the company. However, Xia replies that she was unable to contact her friend and mentions that Sun missed an important meeting. Yang realizes that something is wrong and, determined, says she will look for her friend, believing she is in trouble. Xia calls for the boy, asking why he's behind Sun, but he, angry, orders her not to follow him. Indignant, the blonde says that he is the first person to talk to her like that. However, it quickly recomposes itself and realizes that it needs to stay calm, as the boy is strange and has the formula. In addition, she concludes that he can be very useful for the group. Later, after traveling several streets of Jiangxiang without finding Song, Yang tells himself that he doesn't want to get involved with his enemy, but has no choice. The Qianglong building is presented. An unknown number calls the phone of a man who is on site. He answers and asks who he is. Across the line, a mysterious voice asks not to be tracked, and warns that if you find out that you are followed, it will destroy the man. Also, he orders that they find Sui. The boy gives orders for the information to be delivered in 5 minutes. On the other end of the line, the man reflects that he kept that phone for 3 years, waiting for this call. He is called the Master of the Temple.